On today's podcast, I am joined by DJ and Shreni, an amazing couple that have a new program and offering called We Have Kids Now. And the three of us geek out on global birth, having their first kid abroad, to navigating global pandemics and fires amidst the chaos of birth as well. And then we circle back to their offerings, which is all about how couples can really cultivate intimacy and communication and connection through the prenatal and postpartum experience. Well, I am so excited to have you both on here today to share about your beautiful project, We Have Kids Now, and just hear a little bit more about your journey and how you got here.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Shreni.
I'm DJ.
And we have kids now. And we've been together for almost 9 years now. We met living abroad. I was living in Thailand. I was a yoga teacher and breathwork facilitator.
And I was living in China. I was living in Beijing. And yeah, we met at a music festival. And it was very much like a white lightning, love at first sight, moved really fast, moved in together very quickly. Yeah, like it was just intuitive and wonderful and fast. And yeah.
Whirlwind.
Yeah.
Then, what was it, like 4 years later? Was it 4 years later?
When what happened?
When Rasa was born.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, something like some years later during the pandemic, we decided that we were open to thinking about having a kid, and we kind of approached it in a unconventional way. We like sat down and had all these journal prompts, and we like talked about all of our fears and what it would look like for us. And I was really afraid that traveling would disappear from our lives if we had a kid, and the identity shifts and just the changes that come. So we kind of went back and forth for some months and kept the dialogue open. And then we decided, we were open to inviting a little being into our life. And then bam,
Fast
1 month
again.
later.
The whirlwind continues. Love
Yes.
it. And so where were you living at this time?
So we were living in Shanghai in China.
Okay.
Yeah.
And were you able to find medical support that felt familiar and culturally comfortable for you?
In the beginning,
In the
no.
beginning.
The first appointment that I went to, I was maybe 5 weeks pregnant, and this young male OB, just started telling me about how I really need to watch my weight. And I've always been underweight. Like I'm just a naturally very slim person. And he just starts drilling into me like 15 pounds max. Otherwise, you're never going to lose the weight. And I would start thinking about that now. And that was my first experience. And I was just like, oh my God, is this what pregnancy is going to be like? And I remember kind of crying after the appointment. I was like, this is awful. And I think that's the importance too of making sure that you kind of date around with different providers and figure out who works for you at that time. And I asked a bunch of friends who were living there and heard about this other hospital that was all female staff and had like a hybrid approach with Eastern, or I guess more holistic practices, and then like westernized medical care.
Nice.
Yeah, we went there and I was like, oh my gosh, like DJ, this is amazing. And they gave us a tour and they had doulas on staff, and they had slings hanging from the ceiling, and they had an option for water birth. And this was like in a full, not even a birth center, like a full hospital in China. So that was really, really cool to experience that.
I think they were the only hospital, at least the only one at the time that we came across that even had doulas. Like it was the only one. And it's
amazing.
Fully like a maternal health hospital, Ferguson in Shanghai. And it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was super cool.
I love hearing that. And I also just love that like filled you with so much confidence. Like, and then were you supported by a midwife? Was it midwives and doulas, like midwifery led, or was it OB plus doulas?
It was OB plus doula. And I realized when I got pregnant that I had no idea how to take care of my body. Like I knew nothing about being pregnant. And I was just like, oh my God. So I went like deep and hard, and I got certified as a doula when I was pregnant. I supported a birth. I got certified to teach hypnobirthing, prenatal and postnatal yoga. And I was just like, I'm going to learn for myself. And then I can just share this knowledge with people who don't have the time or resources to do all of this research. And so I was like obsessed.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so cool.
You are not alone. I feel like that's such a standard for so many pregnant women decide to take a doula training or something because they want as much knowledge as possible to prepare for the birth. And we just launched our doula training, and I hope I attract those people so badly. I'm like, please, pregnant people, come to me. Let me nurture you through the training. I love that you did that and that you went down the birth rabbit hole. And now look at where you guys are at, which is, it's all full circle. You
Exactly. Yeah. And also on what you were saying, I think getting all of that knowledge and empowering myself through really understanding everything about birth, and especially with hospital birth and, the cascade of interventions and stuff. Then when it was time for me to actually give birth, it definitely changed my whole experience. And I had a doula, which was amazing, but I also was able to be my own advocate. And I just felt so empowered because
Awesome.
I understood, I understood everything. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, like, I was being a little fly on the wall when she's doing her doula training and just like, in the kitchen or whatever, listening. And even just that by osmosis, like learning a lot. I felt super confident going into the birth as well, and kind of like partner as a doula as well. And like being there, and it's not just the doula telling me what to do, but it's like we're able to have a conversation. It's like, oh, I'll do back support here while you do this thing, and like blah, 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 like, and be a team. And that was so cool and like truly, truly empowering. So highly
I
recommend
love that.
for the dudes out there.
Yeah, the teamwork aspect, and like I feel like a big part of what I do as a doula, and I'm curious to your experience because I know you all talk about this, but I love creating intentional space for my clients to have an intimate moment. Like birth can be so beautifully intimate, and intimacy helps fuel oxytocin, which helps, snowball all the other hormones that we need to get that baby out. So how did intimacy show up for you all in birth? Or just if you want to start more at the beginning of how was your birth story? So you go into labor and then
Take it
what?
away. Take
Yeah.
it away. Yeah.
I did so much prep, and my body just was not ready to go into labor. Most first-time moms, labor starts after the due date anyway.
Totally.
So in China, there's a legal cutoff at 42 weeks that if you do not go into spontaneous labor by 42 weeks, you have to be medically induced. And I pushed it as much as I could. I did the mile circuit. I was eating curries, curb walking. We were having way too much sex.
Everything possible. Yeah.
Everything possible. I was like, speaking to my baby and like channeling my ancestors. I was doing
safe. Come out.
everything,
Yeah.
everything. Yeah, she just wasn't ready, and my body wasn't ready. And so finally I was 41 weeks and like 5 days or something. And I went in for an induction, which was really strange to.
It was like tomorrow, 9 a.m.
I was like, okay,
we're
let's
giving birth.
pack bags. I guess I'll tell like mom and dad gonna go in. So it was a kind of bizarre situation, but I, was able to ask for like the minimum amount of Pitocin, and still like those contractions came, and he was like locked in with me for 3 hours through every contraction, but it was like 10 out of 10 pain contraction for hours because Pitocin, and my bodies didn't have those endorphins to kind of support me through it. And then finally my OB checked me, and I was 1 centimeter dilated.
Honey, that's rough. That's so rough.
It was like, it just shattered me. And
Yeah.
in that moment, my number one thing had been like, I don't want to have an epidural. And in that moment, I just got this message. If you get an epidural, it will help you relax. And what you need to do is relax. And as I like came to that conclusion, I felt like so much shame about asking for it. And I realized that I had been carrying a lot of judgment and shame towards women who decided to get epidurals. And I was feeling that judgment towards myself. And I was like, DJ, is it okay if I get an epidural? And he's like, of course. Like, what do you mean, is it okay? And that was a huge moment for me of just realizing, like, as birth workers, we come with our own set of judgments. And it's so important to check those because,
Totally.
even if you tell yourself that you don't, you have those. And I think being honest with yourself and just expanding the realm of support is super important. And so that was a huge moment in my birth for me. And since then, I'm like so supportive of whatever birth that a woman wants, that's
Totally.
the ultimate empowerment. It's not just, oh, I did it, without drugs or whatever. And I got the epidural.
Took a nap.
I had like a
The
salmon.
best nap of your life.
Yeah. And in China, they have like a walking epidural. So I was able to fully move around.
Awesome.
I had a full meal. I had like salmon and rice and tofu and soup. And yeah, we were just like able to be with each other. And he was giving me back rubs and stuff. And then I was checked again and I was at 7 centimeters, but my contractions slowed down. So
yeah, it started getting that like, what do we do next? Like, is intervention actually going to happen now? Sort of moment. It was kind of like there, and the doc was kind of like, "You need to get this going." And
it's like, okay, it's slowing down. Like, let's give you more Pitocin. And that's when my like doula training came to the rescue. And I was like, everybody wait. And I told I told all of the nurses, I asked my OB and the doula, I was like, I just want 1 hour. I just need a little bit of time. Can we just give me a little bit of space and then check back in an hour and then we can decide from there? And if I hadn't done the doula training, I would have known to do that. I would have been like, okay, they're saying I should get more Pitocin. I should probably do that. And who knows, if I would have done that, it might have led to a totally different outcome. But being able to advocate for myself and be like, okay, I need some time. And then everyone left. And we just had our salt lamps and even my doula was gone. And we had an hour and I had my playlist playing and DJ and I just like, I think remembered that love is what brought our daughter into our life and what created her, and it was what was going to bring her into the world, And so we just kind of tapped into our connection and love, and we were just kissing and hugging, and like he was kissing my neck, and I just felt like I wasn't even trying to do anything, but it was just like flooding my body, and like I felt safe and I felt loved, and it was just like an oxytocin blast, And it was really fun, and it was kind of like naughty, and like the staff was all out there, and this was like this medicalized thing in the hospital.
This is so bad a little bit. It was like super fun,
Yeah, but
Yeah.
and I just felt so good, and I felt my contractions start up again. And after an hour of just like being with each other and being intimate and being almost like erotic also, the team came back in and I was 10 centimeters dilated, contractions roaring, and yeah, she was born like 35 minutes later and no tears. Like it was actually, a really amazing, beautiful birth, even if it wasn't what I had imagined or planned.
Love that. And that is exactly why I love creating space for intimacy in birth. Like I close the door, I'll like leave the room and tell them like, I'll be back in 15 minutes, or I'll like knock in 15 and I go out and I literally like guard the door and I instruct them to make out. I'm like, you know how you made this baby, you need to get that flowing. Or like if water breaks and contractions don't start, that's my number one move. It's like, go make out, go cuddle. Like, because that's like oxytocin, it's a love hormone. So you knew instinctively. And that's a really adorable birth story. That's so cute.
And it was really empowering too, to be like we did that,
Yeah.
We brought her into the world. Like when the system was telling us like, no, your body can't do it. Like you need drugs, you need this. It was like we kind of took that agency back, and then we were like, no, like we are gonna like do this from love, and we will make out, and baby will come. And she did, and it was very empowering as well.
Yeah.
I love that. And I also like want to applaud you for surrendering your initial vision and attachment to an unmedicated birth. I also see that all the time as one of like the hardest parts is the release of the attachment to whatever the birth plan is. And I'm always like, no to birth plans. Let's talk about preferences. Let's talk about like how we hope things go, because it never goes according to plan. Like birth is wild every single time, and no two births are alike, which you know you have 2 kids. So it's, and I'm sure your second story is equally as exciting.
Yes. Yes.
But I'm super curious so yes, applaud you both for making out. I think that should be the moral of the episode. When in doubt, make out.
When in doubt, make out.
I love, like, another tagline I love for this work is like, make love and hire your local doula. Like, make love and hire your local doula. That was on a billboard in Asheville when I used to live there. It was great. But I was like, that's so beautiful, because that's what it's all about, right? But would love to hear about like being in Shanghai, and then, okay, you leave. Did you feel like you experienced any of the beauty of Chinese postpartum culture? Was that available to you?
Yes, it was. So I was super interested in TCM, and my family's from India, so also Ayurveda. And I prepped a lot before I gave birth with, like, mixes of like porridges and khichdi and all these different things. So I kind of stocked up and made loose recipes. And then in China, it's pretty standard to have someone come support you. So they have like a yuasao, or it's basically like, how would you describe it?
Yeah, I mean, it's very common to have like a nanny slash like like someone who can come be with the kid for a bit, make you like let you sleep in the morning. You have nourishing foods for breakfast and lunch, and they just kind of help out and clean up and stuff. So just take a lot of like mental load stuff off your plate, and it's
Yeah.
magical. And like that
Sounds
is the standard.
Yeah.
Sounds a lot like what, postpartum doulas are trying to do. But I love that that's just like weaved into the culture. Just don't even need to have a whole new title for it.
Yes, and I had 3 massages a week for a month, and she would, she was kind of like an auntie, and she would like give me guidance and tell me like how to take care of my body and just talk to me. And we were in China and it was the pandemic, so we were not able to have any family around. So I think having that support was huge.
Truly. Yeah, I mean, like no friends with kids, really, no fam. So like that like village thing was gone, but it's kind of baked into, I think, so much of the Asian societies to have this support. And that was those 40 days after birth. And yeah, it was enormous. I don't know how it would have been so much more difficult without her there.
Totally. Sounds like there was a lot of isolation for you guys in that immediate postpartum time. And then on top of that, the pandemic. So is this when your daughter was born? Was what month of the pandemic are we in at this point?
July 2021.
Okay. So like
It was very different there than it was like the idea of like where we were in the pandemic in China
It was
versus
a very
say,
different
you know,
timeline.
abroad, Europe or the US or whatever. Very
so
different.
you all did the whole from like the initial global lockdown through what, 2021? You stayed in
Yes.
Shanghai? That sounds wild.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when the first COVID case hit, we heard about it, and there were some weird things happening in China, and we called our parents. We're like, oh, there's another like weird virus,
Like H1N1 SARS. Like, you know, those are regionally isolated. We're like, it's probably going to be that again. We'll wear masks for a couple of months and that'll be it.
And our parents were like, that's so crazy. There was always weird stuff going on in that side of the world. And then like, it was just like we just saw, which was crazy.
And you guys just like stay inside and play games? Like, what'd you do?
We did a lot of at-home workouts. Got really, really fit.
Yeah. Just like prison workouts and cooking constantly. And every movie and show you could ever watch, it was watched.
Yeah, we loved it.
Yeah, as I think we're like 70-30 introvert. So we were just fully leaning into that, and it was kind of glorious.
Yeah, I also had a glorious lockdown period of time. Yeah, but feel for the people who had a very rough time.
Yeah, of course.
But cool. So I love that it was also like during that when you were having this downtime and so much alone time that you took that time to intentionally conceive and like put months of conversation into it. That's something else that I want to applaud you all for. And I'm assuming is part of your courses now on like how to have those even preconception conversations to get yourself like in the right headspace, because as you know, so much comes up throughout pregnancy and so much comes up in birth. And then the most comes up postpartum. And so being able to at least have like a framework of conversation or understanding or I mean, there's a lot of couples that don't know how to have those conversations. Like, they don't know what questions to ask each other. They don't
Yeah.
know how to address childhood trauma of their own and how that's going to impact their parenting. I don't know if you guys were talking about your childhood trauma, but
Yeah, always,
I
always.
yeah, I'm curious if you could share some of the questions that you were asking yourself on the preconception side.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
we actually have a free resource for anyone who is interested on our website with a bunch of those questions plus more that
Love
we've
it.
added. And yeah, some of the questions were just what are your fears? What are my fears about what type of mom or dad we're going to be? What are the fears of how it's going to change your day to day life
Hmm.
and how it's also going to impact our relationship? And I think a lot of couples think that if you talk about those things, it kind of might deter you or take the magic away. But actually, when you're able to get that stuff out of the way, then you can actually enter with this like openness and clarity. And I think talking about it too, it was like we realized, okay, these are some of the things that we're going to look out for. These are the things that we're going to put extra attention and care into because we know that there are things that we're afraid of or that we need to work through.
Mhm.
It's kind of like preventative care in a way.
Totally.
Mm,
Yeah.
absolutely.
There's
Yeah,
something,
please.
like I feel like there's something there where, yeah, like what Shreen just said about how there's this sort of mistaken or misplaced romanticism around like, "Oh, we'll just wing it." Like, this,
Hmm.
like, kind of blind trust in yourself, and it's like, "Oh, it's kinda rock and roll, it's kinda badass, like, we'll just go for it." And, like, I can kinda get that. There was a former self of mine that could subscribe to that, but it's kind of like the same thing with, like, a couple. It's like, "You should know what I'm thinking. You should know," like, if I have to tell you, then, like, something's missing from our relationship, that which I think is just, like, a fundamental flaw of so many relationships. Like, you have to communicate about this stuff. You have to be clear. You have to let each other know what you need, how to support. Like, you can't know what you don't know. And when you have like that big rift in terms of expectations, then it's just like such fertile ground for so many resentments and misalignments. And you just fundamentally don't know. Oftentimes you don't know what your partner needs. And so you can't show up. And if that doesn't happen, then obviously it's just like such a slippery slope for a couple, and whether or not you have kids, but especially if you have kids and are going into it, you know?
Absolutely. That now leads us into you're still in Shanghai, you're postpartum. DJ, how was that experience for you? And where did you see your role in that initial postpartum period?
Yeah, good question. I mean, with our first, we were for sure completely flying blind. We really, like Shreen was saying, she poured all of this energy and everything, and she became like a pregnancy and birth, expert. But then when we left that hospital, it was like, oh shit.
Surprise!
Yeah, like, oh my God, you know? I remember like, yeah, we were like, we've watched a couple videos about putting her in the car seat, but it was like, oh my God, like, what are we gonna do now?
Oh, that's
You
classic.
It's like no
Classic.
one trains you for that. Like, maybe there's a taking baby home and you learn a little bit about breastfeeding.
We
You
learned
learn,
about how to put the diaper
yeah, it's like,
on
how
and
do you
how to
swaddle?
bathe them, but like
Yeah,
that is that's the
Yeah.
tippity tip.
yeah,
That's
Yeah,
yeah, if
that's a
that.
drop,
Yeah.
if that.
and then
Yeah.
Mhm.
me dealing with issues with breastfeeding. I mean, that was
Yeah,
really tough.
that was so tough. But to your question, it was for me, I just felt this, it was like this holy shit moment, and that lasted for quite a while, in those first weeks and even months, because it was, yeah, panic Googling and just feeling super excited and like in love, but also so powerless and so like just having to contend and admit even to myself my degree of ignorance of like what postpartum actually looks like, and realizing
Hmm.
that we were just like getting whiplashed and so sleepless, and had not done the prerequisite stuff as much as as you should for identity and roles, and like all of that was changing so quick, and it was just like flying by the seat of your pants, like kind of in reaction mode versus being in a more like just placid, stronger foundation of understanding. And so it was super hard. It was really, and like scary, and like not knowing what's normal and what's, it
Mm,
just like, yeah, it was tough, but it was also obviously like a huge period of like personal growth and transformation, which I'm sure is the case for everyone, and it was really beautiful, but it was also really hectic and scary because we definitely were not prepared and had, no plan to speak of.
yeah. And that's so standard. You know, we don't talk about these things, and the struggles of this early postpartum period are not made public ever. I mean, it's the same thing when you get
Yeah.
pregnant all of a sudden. Like you were a yoga instructor and you did breath work, and still this concept of like now like what is happening in my body is not it's not mainstream. It's not common knowledge, which is mind blowing that this
It
isn't just
is.
something that we're constantly talking about and sharing, but it's been designed that way. And then postpartum, and I feel this. And so I so appreciate what you guys are putting out there because I feel as though so many people put so much intention into the birth, like pregnancy and birth. And then it's like, birth is going to last, like, birth is very temporary. Birth is super, super temporary. And it's going to go one of a couple of ways. Baby's going to come out of there. And, but then you have this little human to take care of for like the rest of your days. Your heart is going to live outside of your bodies. And so how do you adjust to that?
Yeah.
And then care for an alien, this like little water creature that doesn't understand anything. And like, I love it when there's new parents. There was a dad recently who asked me, he was like, well, I'm scared to co-sleep because someone told me that I'm going to be breathing too much CO2 onto my baby. I was
Oh,
like,
yeah, that'll get them.
I think it's going to be okay. I think you can co-sleep. I think you can like sleep next to your baby if that feels okay for you
Yeah.
Yeah,
without
it's like that's
CO2 being
funny,
the
but it's like that's so
it's
indicative
so
of just like
cute.
a lack of anything
Totally.
about that.
Yeah.
Totally. Like, which is great. Which is, I think, why coming back to what was the name of the caretaker in China that would come and take care of you?
So it's called
The
USO.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
Yes, yeah.
Great. Next one's the world into China to study traditional Chinese medicine in the birth space.
Yeah.
So, following your story, so now you're in Shanghai still. You have a kid. We're entering kind of like end of the pandemic. At what point do you all decide to come back to the States?
That's the whole thing.
Yeah, so that was a pretty traumatic experience, just more chaos. So when our daughter was about 7 months in China, they announced that in 48 hours, was it?
I think they
Or
gave us 4
4
days
days. In
notice.
4 days, they were going to start the most serious lockdown that was like a zero tolerance lockdown, which ended up being one of the strictest lockdowns in the entire world that happened during COVID. And there were kind of rumors circulating and some footage that, so basically, what was it? You had to go into your neighborhood little tent. There was a tent in every neighborhood where you had to get a COVID test every single day. And it's connected to your phone. If you test
Whoa.
positive, they don't tell you. They come to your house in a hazmat suit.
Police in hazmat suits.
Yeah, police in
come to your
hazmat
house.
suits with no warning, and then take you to a government quarantine facility for 2 to 3 weeks,
And
which
those
has
are
hundreds of people in them.
yeah, and those are like hastily constructed like facilities. It's like a student like a local school's gymnasium turned into a facility with like cots. And general framing, like this happened. This was when Omicron, I think that variant came
Yeah.
out. It was just like so spread so quickly that the borders in China, which were like formerly fully sealed, and like there were years where there was no like COVID was wrecking the Western world and like most of the world, but there was effectively zero COVID cases in China because the borders were like truly locked and there was like a quarantine system. But Omicron was so transmittable that fell apart. And so this zero tolerance policy, suddenly they were just like threw their hands up and they're like, now we're doing full lockdown.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And so if DJ, our baby, or me were testing positive for COVID, they would separate the baby from us and take her to her own quarantine facility, where we saw videos of like 6 or 7 babies in one crib, and you don't get to see your baby for a minimum of 2 weeks.
Like you don't know
And
how long you'd be
yeah.
separated for. You'd be split up.
That's intense.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, thank you.
And she was still exclusively breastfed, or I think she had just started some solids. She was 7 months. And once I even considered that there was a possibility of that happening, I booked the next flight home, and it was a shit show trying to get home. It took 40 hours for me to fly back with her.
But you left
And
within 48 hours of getting the news that there would be a lockdown. You were on a plane and leaving.
yeah.
Like our life from several years, 3 years, 3.5 years.
Yeah, we had a business there. We had a cat. We had our apartment, all of our friends. Like our whole life was there. And so
Yeah.
I just had to leave with no goodbyes. And then arrived to Dallas where my parents were. They were meeting her for the first time. I was returning as a new mom, as a daughter. It was so much. And then DJ wasn't there. 2 days later, his parents flew in to meet the baby. He wasn't there for that. He's in full lockdown. It was very, very intense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys are talking about it because I feel like as a collective, we've just all kind of blacked out COVID and we've like moved on and we don't ever want to talk about it. But that was such an intense part of all of our lives. This is like a kind of a segue question, but how do you feel or do you have thoughts on how that or did that impact your kids' development, like social development? Or do you feel like the pandemic had an impact on the little baby generation? Because that's going to be part of her birth story that she was born during the pandemic, like the biggest global pandemic.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we can say for the rest of our lives that will be the biggest global pandemic we have to deal with.
Yeah.
I mean, I think luckily she was too small to really have any grasp of what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 7.5 months or something. I mean, certainly for kids who are a bit older, you know, even if you're like a year, 2 years, 3 years, like that stuff starts to in even older, like adolescence. I mean,
Totally.
huge gaps in social development. So luckily our daughter was itty bitty and was just kind of like along for the ride and kind of like, oh, this is fun. Like we're going somewhere else. I'm on a plane, you know, and like,
well, she was only 7 months, so she wasn't. Yeah, she was
not like saying that, but like feeling it on some baby
full
level.
sentences.
Yeah.
She's a genius.
Yeah.
On baby level. And DJ, how long were you all separated during that?
I think it was 6 weeks.
Oh,
6 weeks where I was just locked in our apartment. Literally could not leave the apartment except to go down, to get in line, to go get a test, and then go back to your apartment, which is the only time, of course, when you could actually get COVID. So they were like, it was just this ridiculous notion, you know, it was authoritarian government doing its thing. And they're trying their best, but it was a complete mess. And yeah, we'd get like our meals, you couldn't leave your house. So you're relying on the government coming to you with styrofoam boxes of whatever they saw fit to give you
random
to
groceries.
eat. One time it was a styrofoam box about this big, just filled with like 12 big daikon radishes. It was like, guess we're having radishes tonight for the next few days, you know? It was crazy.
It's so wild. I
know.
could absolutely do like a whole spinoff and we should hang out so I can ask you all these questions. But we'll bring it back to what you all are up to now. Okay, so let's fast forward to your second pregnancy. Tell me about your second pregnancy journey.
Yeah, we thought we were one and done.
We did.
Okay.
And then our birth control failed and I got pregnant. And it was a complete shock. And that was a whole journey in itself of something totally unplanned. And we have, like immediately went into logistic and financial and all of this type of planning. And we're like, I don't know if this is going to work. And yeah, there was a lot of communication back and forth and eventually just choosing like love and inviting like more fullness and craziness and richness. And, you know, another kid means more friends and more parties and more all these things. And eventually we were like, okay, let's do it. And so we've been living in Los Angeles for 3 years at this point, 3.5 years. I'm 8.5 months pregnant with our second, and I wake up at 4 a.m. I hear a bunch of rustling in our living room, which was DJ with a little headlight on, packing up our entire house because we got a notification that we had to evacuate our home immediately because the wildfires in LA were quickly coming towards our home.
Oh my goodness. So this was last January.
Mm-hmm. This past January. Yeah. And so we saw the cloud of smoke. And
I mean, saw the fires
saw the fire.
lake.
Yeah.
Could look out the window and be like, that's an orange glow. Shit.
And sure, that felt good for your pregnancy. So that was probably a good rush of good rush.
Just like maximum nesting instinct and then maximum wildfire.
Yep.
Yeah. And we were like, okay, we need to leave. And I was like, can I take a nap first? I'm so tired, you know?
And you were getting wrecked third trimester. It was a really rough one.
He was a big boy, and I have a really small frame, and it was all forward. So I had so much back pain, and I was so tired. And yeah, we had to evacuate, and we went to stay with a friend's mom who we had never met before in Santa
Santa Barbara.
Santa Barbara.
I mean, she could have given birth at any, like, we were fully within the window of it
Yeah.
could happen anytime.
Yeah, I was 38 and a half weeks, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
and then the fires started coming to Santa Barbara. So then we left Santa Barbara, and luckily DJ's parents were visiting and they had organized a house swap in Manhattan Beach.
Like a year prior, they had kind of like, we're going to do this thing. And it just happened to fall in this little 2-week window when precisely we had nowhere to go. And it was like, yeah, truly fateful and so
and the
fortunate.
fires weren't there. So we stayed at this house in Manhattan Beach for 2 or 3 more weeks. And every day I was just trying to calm my system, get out of flight or fight. And
then wait, talk about the fire that was at the birth center.
Oh, and then I had an appointment because at 40 weeks I had, it's more appointments at my birth center. And we go and there's a giant wildfire like a mile away from my birth center.
Oh,
and
goodness.
Like 15 fire trucks and huge black clouds of smoke. And my midwife was the only person at the birth center because everyone else was evacuating their houses, which were about to be on fire. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, what is going on? Like, is this the end of the world? Like, I don't know if this baby's ever going to come out because I feel so unsafe and so extremely scared. And I had a big breakdown when we were in Santa Barbara, feeling like I was so stressed and how the stress was affecting the baby. And I just felt like he's going to come into this world in this like toxic air with all of these burnt down houses, and like our house might be burnt down. And I felt so guilty for like the amount of stress that he must have been feeling. And yeah, that was really, really tough.
Yeah. Well, so then what happened?
Then eventually the fires settled down and they had it contained. DJ and his dad went to our house, like power cleaned everything, got like 5 air filters, cleaned all of the ash and everything, and then finally went back home. And then 1 week later, I woke up at 5 a.m. feeling like something, and 3 hours later, this boy was born in the water, almost born in the car.
Yeah, we're driving at 5 a.m. going like 97 miles an hour. It's like foggy. There's trucks everywhere. It's rainy. And Shreen's just holding on to the like in the front seat, just like, we're like, oh my God. It was like she was making the animalistic noises. Like she had transitioned into nonverbal mode.
Yeah.
And is just like, I was like, just like fearfully, just like, she's like, oh, faster. I don't know if I could go any faster. Oh, and And what happened? We'll talk about when we got there. We get out, the midwife comes out because we're at a birth center. She meets us.
I had no prior signs of labor starting, no mucus plug, no bloody show, nothing. So I just start having contractions, and then I'm like breathing through them at home, trying to labor at home. And then within like 30 minutes, it's like this is different. And I had never experienced spontaneous labor before. And I was like, I think like we need to go right now. And I got there, and then I step out of the car and just a gush of blood, and I stick my hands in my pants and I just go, blood.
Yeah, single words. We're just like, here we go. Wheel her in there.
I didn't look my doula or DJ in the eye a single time from like the moment I was in like transition to when the baby was born. And I just walk into the birth center, drop my pants. I'm leaving a trail of blood. I just get on the thing and I'm like, check me. And she checks me. Like, I'm in another world, so I don't know what she, has decided from the check. But I thought she said, you're not close. I was like, okay. We go into the birth suite. I sit on the toilet during contraction. My water breaks. I go, water broken. And then next contraction, I'm in the shower. My doula is like putting the water on me. I'm like, I feel like I need a push. And my midwife was like, you do whatever your body needs, if you feel that, like, go for it. And it was like an uncontrollable urge to push. And I was like, so I was in there for 2 contractions. I had the tub filled up. I go into the tub, reach up into myself, and I feel the head. And then I just like knew, and I said, he's coming on the next contraction. And No
Love.
one knew what was going on.
Love, I
DJ had no
love.
idea, and he's like, "Baby, do you want some coconut water?"
I was like, would you like to have a sip? And she's just like,
You were
what?
trying.
And I looked down and see the head. I was like, oh my God. Yeah.
I was like, no one understands. Like, he's coming in the next like minute. And yeah, the next contraction, I pushed and the head was out. And then one more push later and he was born. Yeah, in the water. And it
Awesome.
was such a different experience.
Yeah.
But actually,
Sounds like it.
funny enough, I felt the second birth was much more difficult for me to process and in some
Mhm.
ways kind of traumatic
Mhm.
because it was so fast and like the
Totally.
precipitous labor. I just felt like I got hit by a truck. I didn't know what was going on. It
Mhm.
was just like
Yeah.
the ultimate like loss of control. There was no time for the birth playlist. There was no time for any of this stuff again that I had envisioned for this like slow, beautiful birth. And it was just like in 3 hours he was born. And when he came out, I was holding him. I didn't cry. Nothing. I was just like
You were in shock.
dissociated. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And DJ's like, "Oh my God," crying and everything. And I was just like, and it took me some days and some weeks to kind of process that birth. And even though that birth looked very perfect on paper and it was quick and no tearing and super healthy baby, it was a lot for me to process and really
Mhm.
emotional. And one really nice suggestion that my midwife gave when I shared my story with her was to kind of do like a ceremony for ourselves of like recreating the birth that we imagined.
Mhm.
And so I took him in the bath and I played the birth playlist and
Mm.
kind of like had that slow moment at home with him. And that was a really, really beautiful way to take that experience back, you know? And so I suggest that to anyone who wants to kind of
Yeah.
redefine their birth experience.
And I think that's
Oh,
probably you like inspired you to offer doing the postpartum integration ceremony, right?
Yeah, so an offering that I've been working with women for a few years now is I offer a ceremony that is either virtual or in person, and it's like an integration ceremony of processing your birth and having that space to feel whatever you feel, you know, without having to explain it, without anything, and just letting your body somatically process the experience and the emotions and having a conversation with your womb and your body and having someone to witness and listen,
Mhm.
reflect back to you. And so that's another offering that I haven't been sharing a lot of, but is so, so transformational and empowering for women, especially if birth didn't go as planned,
Totally.
if there was an emergency C-section, even if you had like a great birth, you know, there's so much there to process, and we give birth, and then immediately it's about the baby and breastfeeding, and there's
Totally.
no space for that integration or processing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. There's in like doula care and what we learn on our trips with Wombs of the World is different variations of a closing of the bone
Mhm.
ceremony
Exactly.
and why that is so important. Like it is common practice in so many cultures to take intentional time of offering ceremony. And in some cultures, closing the bones is an actual like postpartum medical support to like really, keep
Mhm.
things closed and they'll sleep with the binding all night. Versus I feel like the way that that's kind of transformed into our culture, like my offerings, for example, is to recognize the birth of the mother, to like recognize like your transition, your initiation into motherhood, this incredible sacrifice you made. And especially like you were just saying, if it doesn't go according to plan and someone's left feeling like empty or violated, there's and wrapping your mind around it, like the fact that you weren't able to like be in your birth experience because it was happening to you so aggressively. And then being able to know intuitively that like you needed to relive that and process that is super super beautiful. So I love that that's one of your offerings. We need more of that.
Yeah.
So now you all have like courses. My first introduction to you is you came up on my Instagram feed. It was you, DJ, talking about how to like better support your partner, like how a dad can show up in the postpartum space. And I immediately loved it because it's so rare to hear men talk about it or for men to take any kind of responsibility in the perinatal period at all.
Mhm.
And so having this like, guy in Colorado talking about it in such a like natural way filled me with so much joy. It filled me with so much joy to be like, yes, we need more dads on the internet talking about this. And then love the full circle moment that we have mutual friends, that your doula has been on 2 of my Wombs of the World trips. Like that's such small world and beautifulness right there. So would love to hear a little bit of your journey in terms of, so I'm assuming that your second postpartum experience was obviously different. But what led in this last year of you guys creating your Instagram page and then the courses that are coming with it?
You want to get into it?
I can touch on it and then you can take
Yeah.
it away. But yeah, we had a difficult first postpartum experience for different reasons, not being prepared, and then more like conflict, not knowing our roles or how to show up. And then I had some autoimmune stuff during my first postpartum, which is quite common for women to get a big flare up. And then, second postpartum, I actually experienced postpartum depression. It was right after the fires. And then we moved from LA to Colorado, packed up our whole house when I was 2 months postpartum. So it was
Yeah.
extremely intense. And then we moved to Colorado. We were staying with DJ's parents, and then he went on a work trip for 10 days. And so I was like isolated and just so many changes, still kind of going like processing everything that had happened. And yeah, it was a really, really difficult period for me where I wasn't really sharing with people around me what was going on. And then finally, when he came back, I kind of shared what I had been feeling, and it was super dark. And I had never experienced depression before. I tend to be like more of an anxious person. So this was a completely new experience for me. And DJ really helped me kind of day by day get out of it. And I think from those two experiences, we really saw that even with lots of like prep, there are a lot of blind spots that couples don't think about. And no one is safe from having a difficult postpartum period, especially with mental health and how our village is and society and maternity leave. And so after that, we kind of just decided that we wanted to take our two very different postpartum experiences and sit down and look at what we could do and what we could learn from those experiences and how we could share that with new parents and expecting couples so that they could be a little bit more prepared for all of these different things that could happen. And I just felt that our experience was so relatable, because we struggled in so many different ways, and we wanted to transform those difficult experiences into creating value for people and like helping other parents. And being a parent is amazing. Like it's the coolest experience that we've had, and it's brought us so much closer. And I think it's because of the tools that we have and the way that we've approached it. And we just want that experience for as many moms and as many couples as possible.
Yeah. And it's like the more we went into it, the more we are also having reflected back at us, friends where we'd kind of be around friends without kids, and they'd see us with our daughter for these years, and then with our son, and it's like, then they'll send us a message, or mainly send Shreni a message.
We
like,
would always get
later.
a text after hanging out with like childless couples, and yeah, always say like, you and DJ are such amazing parents, like the way you guys are together. We're like thinking about having kids now because of you guys. And we got that message
what a
so
compliment.
many times.
And like
What a compliment.
the ovaries are tingling, and they're just like this. I can see a world where this happens, and like where after having a kid, it's like you haven't sacrificed yourself. You haven't, like you don't fall into so many of the traps. It's so natural without preparation and plan to like have your partnership really get strained and struggled, or like fully sacrifice the things that made you or made you as a couple like magnetic and fun after you have kids. And it's so easy to do that. And like, of course things change, but it's like, how did they change and how do you navigate that? And like people being like, you should kind of like share this stuff. Well, like it makes us excited. We're like, okay, and then as we went like deeper and deeper into this work, the more we learn about like the staggering kind of dire statistics about how few people, like 11% of people have a plan. 95% of moms say they wish they had way more support, that they felt unsupported. Like that 90% of moms will say like all other moms should have a plan. And yet it's that like 11% who actually have any plan whatsoever. So it's like, we're like, wow, there's actually like a huge opportunity here to help and like truly help people that we hope at like scale to have a better experience. And like the kid ultimately benefits. Like it's like the foundations of your family. The 2 years after giving birth are the period of time when you're most likely to get a divorce, to have like serious relationship conflict. And it's like, if we can be helping families start on a beneficial, like non-broken family foundation for the kids, for the parents, like if we could just have like move the needle a little bit, like that is so purposeful and fulfilling and worth, sacrificing for and going towards. And so like, that's like truly the motivator.
And to have like a man on our team,
Totally. It's huge.
It's like, it's like we have someone from the other team on our team and we can,
But so many guys want to help. Like so many dads truly do want to help. We hear it all the time. They're like, but it's so hard. Like as men, it is so hard for me to like, took a lot of work to get to the point of like admitting to myself, I don't know what I'm doing. Like to do that is so hard as a man. Like we are groomed from the first days of being a boy to like not show weakness, to not admit that you're not confident, to not admit that you don't know, and just have this stone face. And so it's so unnatural. Like it's so hard for guys to admit that and confront that. And then from that point, have the unlock to then go do something about it, to learn, but it's super, super, super hard. It's just like we're hardwired to not support postpartum. We just like, it's so hard to get over that.
And I feel like it's like, I was talking to someone recently who's around our age, and he was just like, yeah, when my first kid was born 8 years ago, like I left shortly thereafter to go celebrate with my friends. I was like, you did what now? And it's just like, but I was thinking about that, like a few generations back, that was so normal. It was like so normal for like the father to be in, the bar with the cigars or whatever that scene was. And then I look at birth in so many cultures around the world, and the father is still not present in the birth space. Like in Tanzania, he will show up to take the mom home, and she'll be there with her sisters and her mother for days. And then she'll see the father when he comes to pick her up. And it's like, so I think that it's important that men find this space within birth. And so I really love that you inspire so many people with your cuteness. That's so great. So I have a few questions, like specific questions on like tips that I would love for you all to share with our listeners and viewers. But I guess like the first question is, what was something that you had absolutely no expectation of? Like you were talking about like the things that you don't know. DJ, what is something that you feel like once you learned it, it simplified so much of the experience, where it was like your gateway knowledge in the postpartum space?
I think understanding like the physiological stuff is a huge unlock. Yeah, understanding what's happening hormonally, just like the crash. I think support knowing that like her body is like in so many ways like not her own, that it's not normal. So you have to throw out your entire relationship's worth of expectations of what like a baseline normal your partner is like. So like tastes changing, recovery wise means in postpartum, just understanding the depletion on like a very basic level, what's happening in terms of how she needs to rebuild, how she's healing, like just how recovery is so sacred and you have to treat it as such and protect that and show up for that. Just when you know that knowledge, just like the basics, you can't then pretend like you don't know. And then if you don't show up, like you just feel terrible. Like it would just be crazy to not show up when you know what she's going through. And kind of knowing what happens if you don't, and if she doesn't recover, and the postpartum depression statistics, to know like the impact downstream of what that'll happen for, like the ripples out from that for your kid, even for your like community and friends. Like if you fall into that, it's like everything can be really, really, really hard, and not just for like some months, but for years,
Yeah.
That can affect the bonding that the mom's having with the kid, and that what that can do for a kid's social development and just your connection. Those early days are so important for just like connecting and bonding and building the foundations of like what that kid, like what does safety feel like? What does my connection to my mom and dad feel like? And if that's rocky and a mess, like it's not something that you can just quickly learn and then fix a little bit later. Like some damage can be done and that can last years, So it's just like understanding those things and what like the consequences are, and knowing that it affects you too, like you can kind of like loop it around to be like a selfish thing because like her healing slowly negatively affects me too. So like it's like we're all in this together, and understanding that like the team component and having that awareness is just a complete and total game changer.
I love that. And Srini, in your postpartum experience, how do you feel like what do you wish other dads did or partners? Like what were things that DJ did to show up for you that you were like, ooh, that's great. We're going to put it in the course.
Yeah. One thing is always having my water filled up.
Something
Yeah,
small. Men
small things.
listening.
Small
We're
things.
not water. Okay,
No,
what else?
no. It was never grand gestures, you know? It was just like making me feel cared for, just like bringing me a snack that I could just eat with one hand. Or we had a meal train set up and he was in charge of all of that. You know, I didn't have to deal with like texting friends or like coordinating the drop off. And sometimes they would drop things off and I would just be sleeping. And like really him taking charge and like being like the guard and taking care of me, you know, because I put all of my energy to take care of the baby. So someone has to take care of the mom. And partners, if you don't know how to take care of the baby, that's fine. Just learn how to take care of the recovering mom, and that will be a great start.
Yeah, I think that that's like the baseline, especially in that immediate postpartum when that little tiny baby can like barely see yet. And it's just all about figuring it out, all about figuring out the latch, all about letting your body heal, which is why in so many other cultures, you literally have like 40 days of confinement, like 40 days of full on rest. That's 6 weeks of full on rest. And like American culture is so productive that we don't know how to take. Like I tell people that I'm like, if you can take 40 days, and I have to coach my clients, like take 3 weeks. Like, can you just take 3 weeks? Like,
5, yeah.
yeah, like just like rest as much as possible because, but, and then I love, and what both of you have said is that the role of the partner can be to protect. And I feel like that is language that can speak to the like social construction of masculinity in our culture and like what is the role of dad, and it's to protect you mom so that you can recover and you can really bond with your baby. And then when your baby's a few months old and like, you know, you kind of like throw them around a bit, that's when dads are able to like bond so much more and like get the laughs and get the coos and like get the engagement. But when that little alien is just figuring out how to be a human, it's not like there's nothing more important than the bond with mom. So tell me a little bit about the like the breakdown of your course and what people can expect from it and how they can get in touch with you and find all the information.
Yeah. So we kind of say that you can finish the whole course in less time than it takes to watch the Titanic. So it's bite size. It's not like a giant thing to add to your list, you know, of like expecting parents have so many things they need to do. So the idea of a course can feel really heavy. So this is more just like you can watch little 20-minute clips or
Self-paced. They're like short things
self-paced.
you can jump around to whatever you want to do. I think it really just gives you a lot of the like all of the foundations to feel empowered and to
Mhm.
walk away from it feeling so much more prepared and calm, to just save yourself so much time and money buying things that you don't need and running around and this and that. Like it's a de-stressor. Yeah, and it covers all the like the things that give you that empowerment. So it's the newborn care basics. So much is how like it's like the practical kind of nitty-gritty, like we go through all that stuff, but then it's also like the bigger kind of like frameworks of emotional stuff and like how to work as a couple and how to check in with each other, how to be a team, you know, all the things that the partners can do to step up
Mhm.
so that you can just teach them what to do. Cause then dads can go into dude mode, which is like what so many men do so well. It's like you just, when you know and you can understand, then you can just like, we're just going to go like tick off all the boxes and just do what we do best. And as you said, like, I love your framing of protecting the mom because that is so much of what it's about. And, you know,
Mhm.
in addition to the videos, which again are like super short and quick, is a bunch of like, we have a bunch of PDFs and things that are kind of like printable cheat sheets of like what's normal, what's not, so that you don't have, so you can like easily reference them and don't have to worry. And things, you know, scripts for what you can say as a couple, because it can be super
Yeah,
awkward
exactly.
if your relationship isn't such that you like have these scheduled check-ins and that feels really weird. Like it could be really hard. And so like these are just kind of like plug and play, like try these things. And yeah, it'll feel
Mhm.
weird at first, but like doing anything at first is weird, but you learn very quickly how to check in and have much more effective communication. So that's a huge
Yeah.
part.
So we
Yeah.
covered the recovery and hormone and physiology part so that mom and dad can understand kind of the science.
Mm-hmm.
And then we touch on the identity and emotional connection between you two and individually what's going on. And then the last thing is newborn care. Like, how do you help babies sleep? If you're gonna co-sleep, how can you do it safely? Just like baby wearing, skin to skin, all these little things that can really support the first weeks and months.
It sounds awesome. And that sounds like a really, really great course for a birth worker to take. Anyone listening would benefit from these tools, and they should definitely share it with their communities. Okay, my last question. If there's one thing that you wish that like all parents of the world knew, what would you want them to know?
Yeah, I can go first. I would say that we get to define parenthood and we get to decide how we give birth, how we approach conception, how we enter into postpartum, and that we don't have to do it the way the previous generations did. We have access to information now, we have support globally, and this is a really big opportunity for us to redefine parenthood, from all the stages and have it be a really, really beautiful, involved, connected, empowering journey. And that will create amazing little humans who are going to be running the world one day. And that it gets to be a really cool experience if we choose that.
Beautiful. DJ, what would be your wish for the parents of the world?
I think, yeah, there's never been a better time or more resources out there to make it what you want it to be. And I think that just allows you to be the parent, like truly be the exact type of parent that you want to be, to find your online village, to tap into communities and bodies of knowledge and cultural know-how and traditions that like there's just so much you can do to be the kind of parent that you want to be. I think it's really important to figure out before you have kids how you want it to be and then learn throughout the pregnancy, throughout the process, and just be intentional with it because there's so many ways that we can improve how we are as parents, how we are as couples, and reverse a lot of really unfortunate trends through how you arrive at being a parent and how you proceed through pregnancy and then through postpartum and new parenthood and beyond, just how you want to be. Like you're truly it's a period now where if you find the right people that you vibe with and you appreciate and relate to, that you can learn the exact ways to unlock incredible ways to be parents and grow as individuals, as couples, and create really special families that have just never been made in the way that it's possible now, And that's super exciting and so beautiful. And that's why we're doing this.
So tell us about the free postpartum guide that you have available online.
Yeah. So we made a free postpartum guide for any expecting parents, for moms, for dads. It's free to download on our website and through our Instagram. And it's just a 10-minute read to just get you to start thinking about some of these things and think about how you want to enter into postpartum as a team. That's the first resource that we point folks to, and you can find that right on our site.
Yeah. And by just doing that one thing, truly it's so fast and it just sets you ahead of the vast majority of couples who enter postpartum like we did, clueless and then struggling. It'll open your mind. It'll bring awareness to a ton of the things that can happen and how you can start thinking about making a stronger plan for them.
That's so beautiful. Thank you both so much for your wisdom, for your work, and for your love. Thank you for inspiring so many people with how you care for each other and for your family. It's super inspiring and super beautiful. And it has been such an honor and a gift to share this time with you. So thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Everything you're doing is spectacular. Women's the World is incredible. Everyone should take the dual training. And this has been so fun.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode with Shreni and DJ from We Have Kids Now. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did, that you felt joy, that you felt like you learned some nuggets of wisdom on how to better care for postpartum, especially for postpartum couples, and really honor that journey for them as well. We both shared courses that we have available, and I implore you to check out their Instagram at We Have Kids Now. And as usual, you can always find all things Wombs of the World and learn all about our upcoming full spectrum doula training on our website, which is at wombsoftheworld.com. It's Wombs of the World everywhere. So thank you so much for being here. May you walk gently, breathe deeply, and remember that birth belongs to all of us. I'm sending you all my love.